And now to talk in more detail about the latest developments in the Middle East and the impact on the region and the world, it is my pleasure to welcome my guest, Elisabeth Braw, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Good evening. Thank you for joining me.
Good evening.
So, the U.S. has, I would say, quite a troubled history of intervention in the Middle East. Does Donald Trump have a realistic plan for the future of Iran, or is Iran going to be left to fend for itself?
Well, if we have a plan, if he has a plan, we haven't seen it, we the public, and nor has the U.S. Congress, which I think is one of the troubling aspects of this attack. As your viewers will know, U.S. presidents, like most leaders of democratic countries, are required to get parliamentary approval, in the case of the U.S. congressional approval, to go to war, and that has not happened. We also haven't seen the U.S. make the case to the United Nations, the UN Security Council, or the General Assembly, for that matter, or nor have we seen it made. Have we seen the Trump administration make the case for this war to the U.S. public? So we don't know, is the short answer, and that is not an insignificant matter, since the rationale for going to war is essentially is the legitimacy. If there is a valid case, then it should be made according to the U.S. Constitution, and it hasn't been made nor to Congress, neither to Congress nor to the UN, nor to the general public. So that is where we are at the moment.
So you mentioned the Congress, you mentioned the general public. We know of the first casualties on the American side. Three people dead, 5 seriously wounded. For Donald Trump, each American casualty raises stakes domestically. Let's make no mistake there. How long do you think that this attack on Iran is actually going to take place, considering the situation domestically, where you mentioned that the Congress has not been actually in the loop, and the opinion of the civil population?
I think what Donald Trump is hoping for is a quick in and out intervention of the kind that took place in Venezuela. In this case, it clearly involves killing the leader rather than taking him out of the country. But what he was elected on was a promise of no forever wars. And what he's betting on is that he can go into a country, or rather he can send the U.S. military into a country, get the leader removed, and then withdraw from that country without it becoming a protracted war. But there is no guarantee of that. A war famously takes two. It takes two to tango in a war. So Iran has to say in how long this taken. Iran has struck back, and as you mentioned, killed 3 U.S. soldiers. This is why it's so important for the public and for Parliament, in this case, the U.S. Congress, and indeed for the United Nations, to know what it is that necessitated this intervention. If it was something extraordinary, then that's something that the U.S. public and Congress and the rest of the United Nations should be told about. But we don't know what it is, nor what the strategy will be, and as a result, we don't know what comes after these strikes have taken place today and yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Uncertainty seems to be spreading in the Gulf among the U.S. allies when we're looking, as we reported here on TVP World earlier on the program, on Iran lashing out. So is there a way these attacks are going to come to a close soon enough, or are we actually entering a longer conflict, a long-term conflict in the Middle East that is going to engulf more than just that region?
Once again, we don't know, simply because we are not receiving any information. We are receiving information, of course, about what's taking place, but we don't know anything about the underlying rationale,
with everything,
or the
with
strategy.
all the details that you've been given.
But what is important to remember is, first of all, that the implications go far beyond the Iranian government. So, for example, aviation in the region has already had to reroutes out of the affected airspace. So airlines are affected. Shipping in the Strait of Hormuz has ground to a standstill. It's too dangerous to sail into the Strait of Hormuz. There were reports that the Iranian government had closed the Strait of Hormuz. That doesn't seem to be the case, but it's too dangerous at any rate for ships to go in or out. So no shipping. Shipping is simply has ground to a standstill in the Strait of Hormuz, and this will continue for as long as the different sides continues to strike. What we do know is what President Trump told The Atlantic magazine today, which is that Iran wants to have talks, and he said if they want to talk, I'm happy to talk. That is the extent of the information we have. If such talks were to take place, then clearly hostilities would have to cease before the talks could take place. But that is the only information we have, that quote from President Trump in The Atlantic magazine. But it is important to remember that the effect of this conflict is not just on buildings and leaders in Iran. It is also on global logistics, which is so crucial in the Middle East, because it is a hub for all kinds of aviation and shipping, and also for the neighboring countries, which have now been dragged in because Iran has struck some of them in response.
So do you think that when the markets open tomorrow, because this is something that has been widely considered since the attack took place, do you think that this is going to have a major impact on world economy?
I don't think it will have massive impact on share prices, but what the effect that is already being seen is, as I mentioned, on global shipping, and the Strait of Hormuz is crucial to global shipping, specifically shipping of oil. Around 1/5 of the world's oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz. So it will have an impact on, it's already having an impact on shipping. It will have an impact on global oil prices. It will have an impact on global shipping insurance. It's just not, insurance is just not possible to obtain for some of these waters at the moment, which means that ships can't sail even if they would want to, or even if their crews and owners want to do. So all of that is taking place in the background, and the result of disruptions and hurdles to shipping is that at the end of that process, consumer prices will go up, because shipping will continue to happen, but we'll have to go through other waters. And in the case of oil in the Strait of Hormuz, it simply won't be transported from there. So at the end of the day, consumer prices will go up. And that's something that will be felt around the world, because this is not just ships sailing within the Middle East, but they sail through the Middle East or from the Middle East to other countries. The same thing goes for aviation.
And for my final question, I wanted to go back to a statement that was made by Moscow, which earlier called on the international community to assess what it called, quote, irresponsible actions aimed at undermining peace, stability and security, unquote, in the Middle East. Well, that seems quite rich coming from a country that is entering the 5th year of war that it waged against a sovereign country, unprovoked. Is Russia concerned that one of its biggest allies is under so much pressure from the US and Israel?
Yes, it clearly is. And in the past, Russia and Iran have tried to prop each other up. Iran has, over these past 4 years, exported drones and drone components to Russia for use in Ukraine, that kind of thing. Russia doesn't have many allies. Iran is one of them. So this is clearly not a minor matter to Russia. But there is also the matter of the effect that this will have on the United States standing in the world. So and the West standing in the world by extension. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the West was able to condemn that invasion credibly, because it was a flagrant violation of international rules. But being able to condemn such behavior by Russia depends on Western countries not engaging in similar behavior themselves. And when there is, when it happens, as is now the case, that Western countries go to or take military action against other countries without a UN mandate, then that opens the door for Russia and indeed for China and other countries to criticize and condemn the West, in this case, the United States.
Thank you very much for joining. Elisabeth Braw, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council, was my guest tonight on the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so this would be all the latest news for now. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more from the region and the world. Good night.